I always tell people the city feels different after midnight, like someone peeled off the friendly daytime mask and left the bones showing. But that little park at the edge of the river made the difference feel personal. It wasn't even impressive as far as parks go. 2 swings with chains that squeaked, a crooked slide, a cluster of trees clinging to the fence, and one orange street lamp that hummed like it was dying. I started walking there after late shifts, cutting through the paths instead of taking the main road because it shaved off 10 minutes. The first few times nothing happened, just me, the crickets, and the sound of cars in the distance. The kind of quiet where a brain starts narrating its own horror movie, and it's easy to laugh it off, but the walk gets a little faster. Over time, the nerves dulled. The path became routine. Same cracks in the pavement, same graffiti on the bench, same trash can that always seemed half full of fast food bags and cheap beer cans. Familiar enough that one night I even stopped in the middle of the park and sat on the swings for a minute, letting the chain groan while my shoes dragged lines in the gravel. I remember thinking, this isn't so bad. That was the night it all shifted, because I made the mistake of staying long enough to realize I wasn't alone. It started small, a faint scrape on the far side of the playground, the kind of sound that could have been anything. A possum, strayed dog, wind moving a branch. I almost ignored it. Then it came again. Metal on metal, slow and deliberate, like something being dragged. I froze, the swing moving just enough to let the chain whisper. The park's orange light didn't reach that corner well, so everything beyond the sandbox was swallowed in that muddy darkness, where shapes blur together. I stared into it anyway, squinting, trying to convince myself nothing was there. Then, something moved. Not fast, not dramatic, just a figure stepping out from behind the slide, as if it had been standing there longer than I'd been swinging, just waiting for me to notice. The figure was wrong even before details were visible. The posture was too still, too straight. No casual slouch, no foam glow, no restless shifting. Just a person-shaped outline in the half-light, hands hanging a little too far forward, head tilted a little too far to one side. The first instinct was to pretend nothing had been seen, to get up, walk out like nothing was weird, and trust that, if there was no acknowledgement, there would be none in return. But curiosity is a stupid, stubborn thing. I stayed seated, fingers tightening around the cold chain, trying to look relaxed. "You good?" The words came out thinner than I wanted. No answer. The figure didn't move for a heartbeat that stretched into 3, then 5, then 10. Just silence, except for the distant hiss of tires on the road and the buzz of that dying street lamp. Then, finally, it started walking toward me. It wasn't a normal walk. There was no swing of the arms, no bounce in the steps. It was like watching something move frame by frame, an old stop-motion doll shuffled across a table. A step. Pause. Another step. Pause. Each time a foot landed, that faint scrape sounded again, like metal against concrete. I wanted to get up, but every muscle felt jammed with wet cement. I counted the steps instead. 6, 7, 8. Somewhere around 10, the light caught on something in the figure's hand, something long and thin that glinted for half a second before dipping back into shadow. I told myself it was just the reflective edge of a water bottle or a keychain. My heartbeat called it what it looked like, a knife. Flight finally kicked in. I pushed off the swing so fast the chain snapped tight and smacked against the metal frame. The sound echoed through the empty park like a gunshot. That was when the figure broke its rhythm. It didn't lunge or yell, it just sped up, like someone hit fast forward. 1 second it was halfway across the playground, the next it had closed the distance more than it should have, steps suddenly smoother, more confident. I turned and started walking toward the exit, refusing to run because some animal part of my brain insisted that running would turn me into prey. Footsteps behind me now. No more slow scraping, just rapid taps on the pavement getting closer. I cut toward the path that led out to the sidewalk, past the row of trees that lined the fence. In the daytime, they looked like any other trees. At night, they leaned in, branches hooked overhead like ribs, turning the path into a tunnel. I pushed into that tunnel of dark and dead leaves, my breath suddenly too loud in my own ears. The footsteps behind me didn't slow. "Back off," I said, louder this time. Nothing. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel it, whoever it was, closing in. The hair on my arms prickled. Every instinct screamed that if I turned around, if I saw a face, something in my life would slide permanently out of place. A sharp sound cut through the air. Not a voice, not a word. Just a short, ugly laugh, like someone choking on the last bit of a joke. It came from uncomfortably close behind me. That was it. Whatever rule book I had about not running went up in flames. I bolted. The path wasn't long, but in that moment, it stretched out, an endless strip of cracked concrete that refused to carry me fast enough. My shoes thudded. Gravel kicked up. Branches clawed at my shoulders. The footsteps pounded behind me, matching my speed, then gaining. I yanked my keys from my pocket, metal biting into my fingers as I clenched them between my knuckles like some flimsy set of claws. The exit gate came into view, a twisted metal frame that never fully closed right. Beyond it, the sleepy glow of the neighborhood streetlights looked like another planet. I aimed at that gap and didn't slow down. The laugh came again, closer this time, right behind my ear, like whoever was chasing me had leaned in just to let me know how close they were. I slammed my shoulder into the gate, forcing it open, and stumbled out onto the sidewalk so hard my knee scraped the concrete. Pain flared, sharp and hot, but I didn't stop moving. I spun around, one hand up with the keys ready, bracing to finally see who had been behind me. No one was there. The path was empty. The trees were still. The park looked exactly how it always did. Cheap, tired, and small. The swings hung motionless. The slide stood crooked and innocent. The orange street lamp buzzed and flickered. For a second I thought maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. Adrenaline does strange things. Maybe my brain had built a monster out of shadows and late-night paranoia. I almost convinced myself of that, until the gate started to close. It didn't slam or rattle. It just drifted, the way heavy things do when nudged. But there was no wind. The air was dead and heavy. The metal creaked as it swung inward, scraping against the concrete. I watched it until it clicked into place, resting just a little more shut than it had been when I barreled through it. And then, from somewhere deep in the park, under the hum of the lamp and the distant rush of cars, that same laugh floated out. Softer this time, like whoever made it was amused that I'd gotten away. I didn't go back. Not that night, not the next week, not for months. I changed my route, added 10 stupid minutes to the walk, stuck to the main roads, bathed in white and yellow light, surrounded by late-night traffic and people who mostly minded their own business. When it came up, people teased me for it. "You're really letting a little park freak you out?" they'd say, half joking. I never told them the whole thing. Never mentioned the laugh. Never mentioned the way the footsteps had matched mine, or how that glint in the dark still lives behind my eyes when I try to sleep. It sounds ridiculous when I rehearse it in my head, and I don't need to hear anyone else call it that. It's easier just to let them think I'm dramatic about the dark, while I keep walking the long way around and pretend I don't still hear that laugh sometimes whenever I pass too close to a fence and feel the night leaning in. People always say the lakefront park is peaceful at night, like the water somehow absorbs the noise of the world, but anyone who's actually walked it after midnight knows that's a lie. The water doesn't absorb anything, it amplifies things. Sounds bounce off it weird, stretching out in the air, so you can't tell where they came from or who made them. That's the part that always messed with me, but I still went, because the path looped right behind my building, and cutting through it on late nights was easier than dealing with the main roads full of drunk people and loud cars. The night everything went wrong, the lake was completely still. Too still. No waves tapping the rocks, no frogs, no wind, just the faint hum of the city far behind me. I followed the path around the bend where the benches faced the shoreline. One of them had someone sitting on it, hunched forward, elbows on knees, staring straight at the water like it had given them instructions they were waiting to follow. I wouldn't have cared. People sit there all the time, but the moment I walked past, the person turned their head. Not slowly, not curiously. It snapped toward me like they'd been waiting for me specifically. Their posture didn't change, just the head rotating sharp and wrong, eyes locked on me before I even fully registered they were looking. I kept moving. I wasn't trying to get involved in whatever emotional meltdown or weird moment they were having. I reached the curve of the path where the trees get dense enough to block the streetlights, and right before I stepped into the dark, I heard footsteps behind me. Fast ones. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I already knew it was the person from the bench. The steps stopped right behind me. I felt the shift of weight, the presence, the breath, too close. That instinct that lives deeper than logic punched through my brain like a flare going off. Move. I stepped forward quickly, like I was casually speeding up, and the footsteps started again immediately, matching my pace perfectly. The path forked ahead, left toward the dog park, right toward the pier. I took left because the pier dead ends into nothing but water, and I wasn't about to trap myself. The person followed left too, still matching every step. There was no attempt to hide it now. Their boots hit the concrete with sharp, even thuds that echoed off the lake and doubled back at us. I sped up again. They matched it again. I cut right through the grass toward the small, covered picnic area. It wasn't a smart move. There was only one exit, but I told myself if I could get under the lights there, maybe I'd get a better look at who was following me, or at least catch a detail that made sense of this. Instead, when I slipped under the roof, I realized instantly that I'd screwed myself. The footsteps had stopped, not slowed, stopped, completely. The silence pressed in so suddenly I could hear my own pulse in my ears. Then a soft scrape came from behind one of the concrete support pillars, a shoe dragging lightly over the ground. They were right there, hiding just out of sight, waiting for me to make the next move. I froze, mentally mapping the structure. 4 pillars, wide open sides, 1 exit. If they were behind the left pillar, the right side would be clear. If they were behind the right pillar, the left side was clear. But choosing wrong meant stepping straight into them. Another scrape shifted. This one came from the opposite side. Then another behind me. It didn't make sense. There was only one person, or at least, I thought there was. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to move. Slow steps toward the edge. My hands were trembling so badly I had to shove them into my pockets just to hide it. When I got within a foot of open space, something darted out from the left pillar, not lunging, not attacking, just stepping out with purpose, blocking the exit. It was the person from the bench. Same hunch, same stiff movements, same head tilt that looked almost predatory. Their hands were empty, but something about the way they held their arms made me think they didn't need a weapon. I backed up, but they advanced with small, controlled steps, always keeping the distance tight enough that I couldn't sprint past without brushing them. "What do you want?" I asked, though my voice cracked halfway through. They didn't answer. Their mouth moved slightly like they were shaping words but refusing to release them. Then finally, they spoke. "You came back." The tone was wrong, too flat, too certain. Like they weren't telling me something, they were reminding me. I had never seen this person in my life. Before I could respond, they stepped even closer, forcing me to choose between confrontation or retreat deeper into the structure. I took the retreat, stupidly. They followed immediately. I felt the picnic table bump against the back of my legs. Nowhere left to go. The person leaned forward, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could feel the pressure of their presence. Their eyes didn't blink. Their breath didn't hitch. They were studying me, like trying to confirm whether I really was who they thought I were. Then, without warning, they said, "Do you remember the water?" My stomach dropped. I shook my head. "I don't know you." They smiled, a small tight curl of their lips that had no happiness in it. "You were supposed to stay." Before I could process any of that, they stepped back. Just one calm step. Then another. Then they turned and walked into the shadows between the trees beside the structure, disappearing so smoothly it was like they'd been swallowed whole. I waited. Seconds, minutes, I don't know. Listening for footsteps, branches, anything. Nothing came. When I finally forced myself to leave, every step felt like it echoed too loudly. I kept expecting them to appear again, blocking the path or stepping out from behind a tree, but the walk back to the sidewalk was empty, too empty. When I reached the streetlights, I turned around one last time. The picnic structure sat there in darkness, quiet, still, except for one detail I know wasn't there when I walked in earlier. The bench I passed on my way in, the one by the water, was now facing the opposite direction. Turned toward the path, turned toward me. I don't know what that person wanted, or why they thought I was someone else, or what the hell they meant about the water. I don't go back to the lakefront path anymore, but sometimes at night, from my window, I swear I see someone sitting on that bench facing the building. And every time I blink, it looks a little closer. There's a small neighborhood park a few blocks from where I used to live. Nothing special, just a basketball court, a few benches, a crooked walking path, and a cluster of old trees that always looked half dead no matter the season. It wasn't a place anyone bragged about. During the day, kids played there. At night, it turned into a silent patch of darkness, sitting between two quiet streets. I passed through it almost every night because my shortcut home ran straight through the middle, and I hated circling the longer lit route like I was scared of my own neighborhood. I wasn't, until the night that place decided to prove me wrong. It started with voices, not shouting, whispering, too soft to make out the words, but unmistakably human and definitely close. I just stepped onto the path when I heard them, drifting from behind the trees near the cracked picnic table. I slowed down, waiting to hear laughter or footsteps or anything that made the voices make sense. But the whispers stopped instantly, like someone held their breath and pressed themselves into the shadows as soon as they noticed me. I told myself it could have been anyone. Teenagers hiding out, someone arguing quietly, maybe even someone on a phone. I kept walking, pretending the pressure in my chest wasn't getting heavier with every step. The basketball court was ahead, lit only by the faint spill of a distant street lamp. The metal hoop cast a long, bent shadow across the ground. That was when I heard the first footstep behind me, crisp, direct, too close. I didn't turn around, not yet. I listened. Another footstep, slow, deliberate. I walked a little faster, my shoes crunching on old leaves scattered across the pavement. Whoever was behind me adjusted their pace to match, never hurrying, never pausing, just following with the exact rhythm of someone who wasn't guessing their move, but mirroring it. My mouth went dry. I forced myself to look forward, pretending to ignore it. The path curved around the trees, narrowing to a small dirt trail where the pavement had eroded away years earlier. Once I stepped into that curve, the street lamps disappeared behind branches. The world got darker, colder, smaller. I heard the third footstep, closer. My shoulders tensed. My heartbeat hammered so loud I was scared it was audible. Finally, I snapped. I glanced back, quick, sharp, hoping to catch a normal explanation. Instead, I caught a silhouette stepping behind one of the trees, as if ducking out of view the same second I turned. Not a full step, just a shift of weight and the edge of a shoulder sliding into the darkness. My skin crawled. I kept walking, faster now. The whisper started again, faint, behind me, then to my right, then ahead of me, like they were circling. The whispers didn't sound like one person anymore, but multiple, overlapping, as if trading words back and forth in hushed tones. No laughter, no emotion, just low, fluid murmuring that made the hairs on my neck stand up. I stepped out of the curve of the trees and into the open space near the old picnic area. The voices stopped again, but the footsteps didn't. This time they weren't behind me. They were off to the side, pacing parallel to the path, hidden behind the thick line of trees. Whoever it was kept perfect distance, walking in sync like they knew exactly where I was, even when I couldn't see them. I tried to control my breathing. I failed. When I reached the center of the park, the part where 4 paths intersect like a crossroad, I hesitated. Straight led to the street, right led toward the courts. Left led deeper into darkness. Before I could choose, a figure stepped onto the path from the right side, just walked out from the tree line with the slow confidence of someone who knew I wasn't turning back. They weren't tall or short, just average enough that my brain struggled to assign them features. Their hood was up, hands tucked in the pocket, head down. No phone, no bag, no movement except for the steady rise of their breathing. I froze. The person stood there, blocking the path, not shifting, not acknowledging me, just standing, waiting. The whispers picked up again behind me, more insistent now. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My only choices were past the hooded figure or into the dark. I took a step forward, forcing myself toward the only exit that didn't feel like a trap. The figure lifted their head, not revealing anything, just raising it enough for me to know they were locked onto me. They didn't move, didn't approach. They just stood in the center of the path, staring like their job wasn't to chase me, but to decide whether I was allowed through. "I just want to go home," I said, my voice so shaky I barely recognized it. The figure tilted their head, a tiny unnatural angle, almost curious. Then they stepped aside just enough to open a narrow gap on the path. My stomach dropped. Nothing about the gesture felt kind. It felt like permission, or worse, invitation. I walked forward, every step slow, waiting for the figure to reach out or step in front of me again. They didn't. They stayed completely still, only turning their heads slightly to follow my movement as I passed. The whispers behind me grew louder for a moment, like whoever was hiding in the shadows didn't approve of me leaving. I didn't look back, not even once. I pushed myself forward until the park entrance came into view through the break in the trees. When I stepped onto the sidewalk, under the orange glow of the street lamp, I finally turned around. The figure was still there, standing exactly where I'd left them, facing me with their head tilted the same strange way. Behind them, deeper in the trees, I saw more silhouettes, not clear ones, just enough to know the whispers hadn't come from one person. The hooded figure lifted a hand slightly, like a tiny wave, or a signal I wasn't meant to understand. Then, all at once, every silhouette stepped backward into darkness. Even the hooded one. All at once, like they'd rehearsed it, like they'd done it before. The park went still again, completely still. I stood there for a long time before I trusted my legs enough to walk home. I didn't take that shortcut again. I don't even go near that block after sunset. And even now, sometimes when I walk past the intersection where the street lamp flickers, I hear a faint whisper drift from the trees. Not words, not a voice I can place, just the reminder that the night is quieter when it's watching.